Louie Tee. Welcome to the 2019 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series where your man Louie Tee aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2019 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale. Single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series as we cannot tell how these players are going to pan out, and I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so we'll get a score for each and every single player selected in X said team's draft. We'll apply bonuses when necessary, get an aggregate score, divide by the number of picks, which will yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer, are in total control as this is the You Pick format. Simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos in this series stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Some examples would be Panthers, next. Carolina, next. Carolina Panthers, next. Next. Cats. You know where I'm going with this. As a matter of fact, keep pounding. Next. The next team up in the series is none other than the Carolina Panthers. And this is a team that I feel like they're going to right the ship. If Cam Newton is healthy, they're going to turn things around sooner rather than later. I love the direction that they're going in with Marty Hurney as their general manager. Remember, I was a huge Marty Hurney fan the first time around, 1.0 version, before he was fired. You brought in Dave Gettleman. You know how I feel about Dave Gettleman. You're seeing some of the things he's doing in New York. You're so glad that he's gone because, to me, the architect of you winning in Carolina, 2015 being the prime example, all of those players that were helping you win for the most part were Marty Hurney guys. The linchpin and really the engine that powers this team, Marty Hurney draft picks. And so it's good to see him back to kind of put the pieces of this puzzle back together that were scattered all over the place when Dave Gettleman left the building a couple of years ago. But this is another one of those drafts where you start to see the building blocks of this team maybe going back in the right direction. Still think you need some parts here and there, but you can't fix it all in one draft or one off season. It's a process, and so he's got to undo some of the things that Dave Gettleman has done. I think he's done a really good job these last two drafts, including this one. And so I think a lot of the needs, at least the biggest ones that were on the board for this Panthers football team, was addressed in this draft by Marty Hurney and company. And so I think it's a draft, if you're a Panthers fan, that you're very excited about. And you add a couple of guys in free agency, none bigger than Gerald McCoy, who you think can come in and help you along your defensive line, which is one of your biggest issues up front. Getting to the quarterback, McCoy, you're hoping can help you do that as well as stop the run. So there's some good things going on in Carolina. Cam Newton seems to be healthy. I'm hearing reports of a potential brand new throwing motion that he's supposed to be unveiling at minicamp. So I'm excited about seeing that. It's an exciting time for the Carolina Panthers because I was talking to some fans last year. They say, look, we don't do well on even years. It's just the way things go. But we'll be back on the next odd year. Well, it's 2019. It's an odd year. Let's see if the Panthers come back and do what they are accustomed to doing on these odd years, which is make the postseason and be a really good football team. I think this draft is going to help them head in that direction. Let's take a look at what they were able to do in the 2019 NFL Draft. We start with their first round selection, 16th overall, edge rusher out of Florida State, Brian Burns, is the selection to get this Panthers draft kicked off. So I'm not going to break down Leonard Floyd here, as I've already done that on my Draft Prospects 101 series. So if you're looking for a thorough breakdown of Brian Burns or any of the players that I was able to get to prior to the draft, just go to the playlist section on the Louie Tee Network and find the 2019 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series. It's equipped with film and a detailed explanation of what I see with these particular players. Brian Burns, one of those players in question, a guy that I absolutely loved going into the draft. As a matter of fact, I'm a massive Washington Redskins fan, if for those of you who don't know. And I wanted my Redskins to draft Brian Burns, and I was perfectly content with drafting him at 15 if the Redskins decided to go in that direction. They ultimately decided to go the quarterback route, which was perfectly fine by me. Had no problems with that option either. That was a massive need for the Redskins. But Burns, to me, was one of the premier edge rushers in this draft. I know a lot of people were going to talk about the guys at the top of the draft, and rightfully so, and Boza and Josh Allen and all of those guys. And look, those guys are extraordinary rushers in their own right. But to me, Brian Burns brings a little bit something different to the table with his length and his athleticism and his ability to drop. I was so blown away by his combine workout. He looks so fluid, a guy that can drop into coverage and make plays on the ball. And so I think Brian Burns brings a lot more than just the ability to rush the quarterback. And so I'm anxious to see if the Panthers are going to take full advantage of what he brings to the table. But nonetheless, I think it's an extraordinary pick. Let's take edge rusher off the board in terms of a need for the Panthers. As you can see, I'll quickly go through the needs that I deem to be the biggest going into the draft for the Panthers. Obviously, the offensive line was a problem last year. If you're going to have Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey and all these guys that are playmakers for you making plays, they need space to operate. And the offensive line just simply wasn't good enough last year. The tackle position has been a sore spot for the Panthers for a while now. And I think they did a really good job of addressing it this offseason. We'll see if it comes to fruition or not. Are these guys good enough to get the job done? But in any event, offensive line, big issue. They took care of that via the draft. Also, edge rusher, to me, the Panthers simply just don't get enough pressure on the quarterback. To me, you've got two guys that can get to the quarterback. And F.A. Obata, who I actually like. I think he's still raw, still learning the position. But I think there's some juice there, and I think there's something to still be tapped into with him. Obviously, you've got Mario Addison, the one guy that could get pressure for your football team off the edge. That's it. You don't really have anybody else. You got Bruce Irvin in the offseason. To me, he's washed at this point of his career. If you get anything out of him, consider it an added benefit. I don't think you're going to get much out of Bruce Irvin at this point of his career, but we'll see. I could be wrong, but I think he's washed. But you look at what you've acquired in this draft, and you've got to feel good about what you've been able to do, especially this first pick here of Brian Burns, who's going to immediately come in and upgrade your pass rush. Cornerback is a position I thought that you should have attacked aggressively in this draft. I really don't love your cornerback situation. I think you've got two guys that you could probably rely on at the cornerback position, your two starting corners. Other than those two, I really don't know if you have the depth necessary to stand up to the competition in your division. That's why it's going to be paramount that you get pressure on the quarterback because, again, outside of James Bradbury and the LSU product that you drafted last year, I just don't know if you've got enough at the cornerback position. Ross Cockrell and those types of guys don't get me excited in Carolina at the cornerback position. So I'm not really feeling what the cornerback position has to offer in Carolina right now. Thought you should have addressed that in the draft, but you didn't. Okay, that's fine. Quarterback, obviously, that's a position that needed to be upgraded behind Cam Newton, especially with his shoulder situation. And you don't really know if he's going to be able to stay healthy. He hasn't really been able to do that the last 4 or 5 years. He's always missed at least a game or two somewhere in there. And Derek Anderson was a veteran backup for you for years. He moved on last year and finished up his career in Buffalo. And you're going to need someone that you can trust. You took care of that in this draft. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Safety is a position that you attacked last year with Rashawn Godwin. And I actually like him, and I'm not giving up on him. Obviously, Eric Reed came in last year, played well, got the extension to stay in Carolina. I think you could use some more depth. Colin Jones and those guys, again, I don't get excited about those guys, seeing them on the field. So I think you could have used some more depth, if nothing else, at the safety position, but didn't choose to do that in this draft. And then running back, that's another position that, again, I was not excited about outside of Christian McCaffrey. I was sick and tired of Cameron Artis-Payne and sick and tired of the Fozzie Whitakers of the world getting touches in the backfield. You cleaned that up this draft. I think you have a backfield that you can be proud of in Carolina for years to come. And so those are the positions of need going into the draft for me with this Panthers football team. You took care of one of those needs here in the first round, 16th overall selection. Edge rusher out of Florida State, Brian Burns, for me, is...
Hits it high! Hits it deep! It is out of here!
So you take a look at now the second round, and the comp for me with Brian Burns before we move on to the next pick is Leonard Floyd. And I talked about that on my breakdown. I think he has more pass rushing ability than that of Leonard Floyd, but when you look at the body types and the athleticism, they're very similar in the way that they're constructed and the athleticism that they bring to the table. I think he's a much more ferocious pass rusher than that of Leonard Floyd, but we shall see. We go to the second round, 37th overall selection, offensive lineman out of Mississippi. Greg Little is the pick. So the Panthers really wanted to address this need. They traded up in the draft to get Greg Little. I love the selection. I love the aggressiveness to go up. If you haven't had a chance to watch the Buffalo Bills draft war room special that they did on their website, it's excellent. And it was so fun to watch them kind of go through the emotions of trying to get Cody Ford. And they thought that the Panthers had traded up to get Cody Ford. And so they were all distraught, disappointed. And then when they realized that they were coming up to get Greg Little, they were all invigorated. And they were like, look, we got to trade up to get Cody Ford. And so I personally didn't love the selection of Little himself because I thought there were other offensive linemen available that you could have selected if you were looking for a tackle. But if you were specifically looking for a left tackle, which the Panthers were, then this was the best option available. The guys that I liked ahead of Greg Little at this particular selection, that of Cody Ford and Dalton Reisner, both are more of right tackles than they are left tackles. And so if you're specifically looking for a left tackle, then you did the right thing here, selecting Greg Little out of Ole Miss. 6'5", 310 pounds, 35-inch arms, 29 career starts at Mississippi. Greg Little looks the part at 6'5", 310 pounds with 35-inch arms. While he isn't the bruising, physical behemoth left tackle prospect that teams covet, Love gets the job done, okay? Or excuse me, Little gets the job done. While he wasn't asked to do much in 2018, man, a lot of down blocks, a lot of double teams. I was actually pretty disappointed in what I was watching him do because a lot of what he was doing, it doesn't necessarily translate on a pro level. You're not going to see your left tackle down blocking and double teaming the entire game, which is essentially, he went games where he singled up on guys. I mean, it was, again, that's the scheme he was in. I'm not going to beat the man up for doing what he was asked to do, but he is capable of manning the left tackle position at the NFL level. Little could stand to get functionally stronger, but he seems to be a good option as a plug-and-play tackle with a good second-round value. And I think that the Panthers did a great job of identifying a guy that they wanted, going up and getting him, and really fixing a big-time hole on their roster. And so let's take offensive line off of your needs list as you took care of your biggest need, I thought, coming in to this draft at the tackle position. My comp for Greg Little is Brendan Albert, the ex-Kansas City Chief, Miami Dolphin, out of the University of Virginia. Excellent tackle for years in this league, a guy that was a rock when he was healthy. And I think that he can be that for the Carolina Panthers. And with all the athletes that you have, you need a guy that can move like Greg Little can at the tackle position. You want to throw those bubble screens, those wide receiver screens, the screens to McCaffrey out of the backfield, the screen to the wide receiver that you drafted out of Maryland last year. You want to throw it to him out on the perimeter and let him work DJ Moore. You want a guy that can get out and run in front of those players and give them the space necessary to make big plays down the field. A guy like Greg Little will provide that for you. And so here in the second round, 37th pick overall, offensive lineman out of Mississippi, Greg Little, for me, is so you move on to the third round, 100th pick overall, Quarterback out of West Virginia, William Grier, is the selection. Old William Grier. Hey, I'm gonna end up calling him William a couple of times when he throws some back-breaking picks, but Will Grier is actually intriguing. I'm not gonna break him down here because I've already done that on my Draft Prospects 101 series. So if you're looking for a thorough breakdown of Will Grier, much like Brian Burns, go to the Draft Prospects 101 series. But Will Grier is very, very interesting. A guy that went from Florida to West Virginia, had a very storied career at West Virginia, probably set tons of records there, was extremely efficient with that group in that wide open offense, had some really good receivers to throw it to, and made the best of his situation at West Virginia. And what's interesting is everyone thought that if the Panthers were going to attack the quarterback position to back up Cam Newton, as a matter of fact, let's take quarterback off the list of needs as you attack that here. Everyone assumed that they were going to go after a big, strapping, athletic quarterback like the Buffalo kid, Johnson. A lot of people thought that they were going to go after someone like that, or excuse me, Tyree Jackson, and out of Buffalo. And it seemed like a good fit for the Panthers, someone like that. But Will Grier is a little bit more athletic than people give him credit for. He's not going to wow you with his athleticism, but he ran the same type of offense that the Panthers run in Carolina. A lot of read option, a lot of run pass option, a lot of shotgun. A lot of these things are not going to be foreign to Will Grier. They did a lot of these same things and some of these same concepts at West Virginia. So while you may look at him and say he's not apples to apples fit to what the Panthers do with Cam Newton at quarterback, I beg to differ. I think he can come in and assimilate himself very well to what the Panthers do with Cam Newton. They don't have to change their offense dynamically to make Will Grier fit if Cam Newton were to get injured, or he would have to leave the game for a quarter or two, and Grier would have to come in relief. I think he'd be able to come in and run a lot of the same things you do with Cam Newton. So again, you're not running read option keepers with Will Grier necessarily, but a lot of the things you do with Newton, you can do with Will Grier. So I think this is a solid pick. And as I always say with backup quarterbacks, when they come in the game, I want them to do something. All right, you may throw picks, you may throw touchdowns, but do something. Come in the game and do something. Will Grier definitely going to come in the game and do something. And so he, to me, is a career backup. I don't think he's a starter in this league. He may ultimately get a chance to start somewhere. Maybe it's in Carolina if Cam Newton can't stay healthy. But bottom line is, to me, he's a backup quarterback. My comp for him, if you watch my video, is Ryan Fitzpatrick. Oh, fitty. And so I think he's the perfect backup in Carolina. If Cam goes down for a 2-week stretch like he's prone to doing, and generally it's against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when he misses games, I think Will Grier could come in, do a bang-up job for you, and keep it moving. And so I think this is a really good quality pickup here in the third round for the Carolina Panthers. 100th pick overall, quarterback out of West Virginia. Will Grier, for me, is so we mosey right along to the fourth round, 115th overall selection. Edge rusher out of Alabama, Christian Miller, is the pick. So you double down on the edge rushers, and I couldn't be more pleased with that decision. Again, I wasn't a huge fan of you drafting Marquise Haynes last year. I don't know if he's going to provide anything for you. A couple of years ago, you drafted the Texas A&M defensive end that was opposite of the first overall pick that went to the Cleveland Browns. And I told you, I think he's okay, but I'm not sure he's going to provide anything for you. He's no longer a Carolina Panther. He's since been picked up by the New York Jets, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So you haven't had a lot of success picking edge rushers. Thought you needed to at least get one. You double dipped. And I think you got another talented pass rusher here in the 4th round in Christian Miller. 6'3", 247 pounds. Again, another guy with some extreme length. 35-inch arms. Brian Burns is a guy with some long arms as well. 38.5-inch vert. So this guy is explosive. And he was a guy marred by injury at Alabama and had to wait his turn. You know, Alabama's stocked and chock full of defensive talent. Every year they're sending 3 or 4 guys from their defense to the league. And so he just got caught up in a numbers game. As a matter of fact, let's break him down quickly. A highly recruited edge rusher nationally, Miller landed at Bama and got caught in a talent logjam, waiting essentially 3 years to get his opportunity. And then got injured with his bicep, and that delayed his opportunity even further. 2018 proved to be his lone season to prove what he was capable of, and he did not disappoint with 8.5 sacks, and his elite length, change of direction, body control, all make him an instant problem off the edge. Now all he needs to do is bulk up and get stronger to hold up in the run game consistently, and you may have yourself something here in the 4th round. So it's a very intriguing pick, a guy that you see flashes of brilliance from off the edge. I love the way he can bend the corner, win initially, use his hands violently, and generally that's what you get with Alabama players is the violent usage of hands. They teach that very, very profusely at Alabama, and they use it very well. And this is a guy that uses his hands well. This is a guy that gets a great jump off the snap, and he's a guy that can duck, can bend, can contort his body to turn that corner, flatten that edge, shorten that corner, and get to the quarterback. So there's a lot to like here. I think there's still some developing to do, but what he has, you can't teach. 35-inch arms, you either have that or you don't. He's got a distinct advantage with that kind of length and his ability to move. I think you put all those things in one package and you got yourself a big-time edge rusher potentially at the next level. And so Christian Miller, for me, is so intriguing. I'm going to watch his development in Carolina closely because he's one of those guys that if you coach him up correctly and you show him the finer points of edge rushing, you could have something here. And this is when the coaching staff needs to earn their money here because this guy is definitely talented. And so here in the 4th round, 115th overall selection, edge rusher out of Alabama, Christian Miller for me is I see immense potential with Christian Miller. I don't think he can stand up to the run game and the rigors of the run game at this very moment with his current build. I think he's going to have to get physically stronger and a little bit more stout at the point of attack. Will that ultimately sacrifice a little bit of his athleticism? I don't know the answer to that. But if it doesn't, and he's able to bulk up and let's say get to 257 and still keep his athleticism with that length, this is a guy that could play every snap and be effective for you moving forward. I'm anxious to see how he develops in Carolina, as his comp for me right now is Eli Harold. Hasn't had the most success in his NFL career, but a very talented pass rusher coming out of Virginia. Hasn't really materialized since getting in the league. You're hoping that that's not going to be the case for Christian Miller. You're hoping that he actually provides something for you off the edge, unlike Eli Harold did in San Francisco when he was drafted by the 49ers some 4 or 5 years ago. We move on to the next selection in the draft for the Panthers. 5th round, 154th overall selection. Running back out of Florida, Jordan Scarlett is the pick. So I talked about the running back position. Let's take that off of the needs list as Jordan Scarlett gives you a nice little addition to your backfield. Again, I told you, I'm done with the Cameron Artis Paynes and the Fozzie Whitakers of the world and and the Tavares cadets. Look, all of that stuff was cute and it was fun. It was nice. Let's get you some real stuff in the backfield to complement Christian McCaffrey. Why don't you? And so I think you did that this year. Not only did you draft Jordan Scarlett to come in and give you something off the bench, but you also got Elijah Holyfield as an undrafted rookie. And I think he's good. Not only is he going to make your football team, but he's going to make your football team in backfield better. And so everyone in this backfield to me has a specialized role. Christian McCaffrey can do it all. All right, he can catch it, he can run it in between the tackles, outside the tackles. I think McCaffrey isn't great in pass pro, but I think some of that is due to his size. Nonetheless, Scarlett to me isn't the greatest in pass pro himself, but I think a guy like Elijah Holyfield can get that done for you. Elijah Holyfield, not a natural pass catcher. Neither is Jordan Scarlett, but that's where Christian McCaffrey comes in. Scarlett is a guy that can run and get the physical yards. So can Elijah Holyfield. So I feel like everyone that you now have in the backfield brings something extra to the table. And Jordan Scarlett, 5'11", 208 pounds, ran a 4.47 at the combine, a little bit faster than I thought he was going to run. So that was a little surprising to me. A solid NFL running back, physical runner that can be tight-hipped at times, but offers enough elusiveness to be a factor at the second level. Very frustrating back as he's an extremist at the line of scrimmage. Either he's too patient or he's too decisive. He lacks elite vision, and his hands are also very complicated. All right. While he offers value, it's no more than a backup or a third option in the backfield. So this isn't a guy that I think that you should be looking to start. And obviously that's not what you drafted him to be. Christian McCaffrey is the guy you want to start. And obviously in a pinch, if McCaffrey were to go down with the hamstring for 2 to 4 weeks, a guy like Jordan Scarlett could step in and you'd feel good about that. But if McCaffrey were to, and if something were to happen to McCaffrey and you would have to have Scarlett be your back all year long, I'm not necessarily comfortable with that. I wouldn't be, as a matter of fact. I don't think he's a NFL starting caliber running back. However, I think he is a guy that can give you a number of carries and touches per game, and you would feel very comfortable with him in that role. And so when I say he lacks elite vision, I feel like he misses a lot of opportunities for some big plays, or as a wise man once told me, a lot of meat left on the proverbial bone with Jordan Scarlett. Watching him on tape, there are times where he just puts his head down and says, I'm going to take the 3 yards, and there's actually a cutback that could have gotten you 33 yards if you would have made that choice. And so to me, he's not an elite runner from that standpoint. He's a guy that I talked about his hands being complicated. Wow. I watched him versus Kentucky, and it's frustrating because you watch him on one play, run up the middle of the football field, beat the linebacker one-on-one, make a beautiful catch, get up the field, and get about a 25-yard chunk play, catching it out of the backfield. And you're like, okay, that's some good shit we can work with there. And then the next 3 times he's thrown the football, they're all drops. So then you're saying, what the hell is going on with this guy? So his hands are complicated. I don't think he's awful. I don't think his hands are consistent, however. So that's still going to be the Christian McCaffrey department there. But again, you're looking for a serviceable backup option. Jordan Scarlett is that. I love the addition of Elijah Holyfield. To me, that gives you that double trouble feel that you once had back in the day with Williams and Stewart. I think you're going to see more of Elijah Holyfield than Jordan Scarlett, I believe, initially, because I think there's a niche that Holyfield can carve out as a tough in-between-the-tackles runner, something that the Panthers, I thought, lacked a little bit of last season. And so I think you're going to see more of an undrafted guy than potentially a drafted guy here in Scarlett. But don't sleep on Jordan Scarlett and what he can bring to the table either. Either way, in the 5th round, 154th pick overall, running back out of Florida, Jordan Scarlett for me is And it's funny because I just said I'm done with Cameron Artis, Payne, Fozzie Whitaker, Tavares Cadet. that's the comp for Jordan Scarlett for me, is Tavares Cadet, a guy that can do a little bit of everything out of the backfield, but nothing great. Okay, I think Tavares Cadet is actually a better pass catcher out of the backfield, but that remains to be seen. I think Jordan Scarlett might actually be able to improve his ability to catch the football. And so I think he can offer you a lot of different things. I just think he's elite at any one thing. And so to me, he's a Tavares Cadet type in the backfield. You go to the 6th round, 212th pick overall, offensive lineman out of South Carolina, Dennis Daly is the selection. So we go to the 6th round, another offensive lineman selected. As a matter of fact, be more specific, another offensive tackle selected by the Panthers in this draft. Again, they needed help up front at the tackle position, and they double dipped, much like they did with edge rushers. So again, can't be mad at that. They attacked the position of need. To me, offensive line, obviously the biggest need coming into the draft. They took care of that with 2 of them. Not 1, but 2. I thought edge rusher was your next biggest need. You took care of that with not 1, but 2. So, again, attacking some of the biggest needs on this team and doubling down on those needs. Here in the 6th round, you do it with Dennis Daly, 6'5", 317, 33-inch arms. And so Daly's a good-sized NFL tackle that lacks the foot quickness and body control to be a consistent NFL starter. At this point, Daly's hand placement is inconsistent as well, but Dennis Daly went up against the SEC gauntlet. All right, Georgia's DeAndre Baker, Kentucky's Josh Allen, who baptized him, Ja'Kai Polite, and also Clelin Ferrell at Clemson, holding his own against the latter two. At worst, Daly is a swing tackle. At best, he's a fringe starter. So that's what you're getting here in the 6th round. He's going to make your football team, by the way. Okay? I don't think the depth at tackle is good enough to keep this guy from making your football team and being a developmental guy right off the bat. I expect him to make your team, and they'll continue to bring him along. He's not going to start. And so I expect you to continue to bring him along as you're moving into the season. And I think he's going to be your swing tackle. He's going to be the guy that plays left or right if somebody goes down, and I think that's going to be his role in your football team. And you can do a lot worse than Dennis Daly, so I'm not mad at that. There's some issues here, though, that he's got to clean up, and I don't know if he can clean them up, and that's why he's sitting here in the 6th round. You go watch him against Kentucky. He got his ass whooped. I mean, it was as bad about a last half a quarter as you can play in that Kentucky game versus Josh Allen, who had a field day to the quarterback against him. Daly didn't know if he was coming or going, if he was going inside or outside. Josh Allen had him guessing, and he just couldn't figure him out. But then you watch him against Ja'Kai Polite, shuts him down. You watch him against Clelin Ferrell late in the season versus Clemson, shuts him down. And so you saw him get better as the season progressed, and you see some good things out of him. But he's the guy that once he takes a step to open up, he can't recover to the inside. He's not quick enough. And so he's got some issues that he's got to resurrect. And if he can't, he'll be a marginal tackle at best his entire career. My comp for him is a guy you know all too well in Byron Bell. And I know a lot of you are saying, oh, shit, here we go. Look, he can develop and become a very solid backup tackle for you. If not, like I said, swing tackle at worst. And if that's the case, you can do a lot worse in this league than a guy like Dennis Daly. So in the 6th round, 212th overall selection, offensive lineman out of South Carolina, Dennis Daly, for me, is So we wrap up this Panthers draft in the 7th round, 237th pick overall, wide receiver out of Georgia, Terry Godwin is the pick. So I like this pick. I like it a lot. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and take wide receiver off, wide receiver, not even one of your needs. So let me take that back. I thought that this could have been a safety because I actually like what, and I'm not a huge fan of the Panthers receiving core. Since Cam Newton's been in the league, he really, to me, hasn't gotten the support he's needed at the receiver position. A lot of times he's been asked to make some great lemonade with some really, really sour lemons. And it's tough. Even in the 2015 season when he went nuts, Ted Ginn Jr. had an out-of-body experience season. The run game was so effective that the play action fake was ridiculous. But when you look, he had the best receiver he's ever played with is Steve Smith Sr., obviously. And he really hasn't had anything else other than that. And Devin Funchess, I thought was a really solid receiver for you, but you allowed him to walk in free agency. But I thought you did some good things in free agency this offseason. Again, we don't know how these targets are going to turn out. Obviously, DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel are two young receivers that you're going to continue to try to develop and get the most out of. But I thought bringing in Chris Hogan, a.k.a. 7-Eleven from the Patriots, is a great move. I thought that Rashad Ross coming from the now defunct AAF, but a guy that played in this league before. Me, as a Washington Redskins fan, can tell you up close and personal, Rashad Ross, we used to call him the Rocket in Washington, should have never been out of the league. The guy can play at an NFL level, should have been in the NFL, and he's a deep threat waiting to take the top off of a defense. He's going to come in, and I think he's going to help you. Aldrick Robinson is a quality third, fourth option in this league. Had a nice season with Minnesota last year. Again, me being a Redskins fan, he was an ex-Washington Redskin as well. I can tell you this guy can be exceptional for you too. So you add three receivers there already with the two that I just mentioned that you're going to continue to develop. I didn't necessarily think that receiver was that big of a need, but you add in a guy like Terry Godwin, who is a really solid receiver that's going to come in and compete for a roster spot. I think he's going to make this football team a dependable slot option that possesses good quickness, route running ability, reliable hands, and injuries and other dynamic weapons around Godwin kept his production modest at Georgia, but he has the potential to be a team's third or fourth option at receiver that can get the job done when his number is called. 5'11", 184, 4.55 40, 36.5-inch vert, all modest numbers, nothing going to really knock your socks off. To me, my comp for him is a guy that you know all too well because you saw him in your division for years, tearing up teams. And I think he might have even played a year or two at the back end of his career in Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, in Lance Moore. And so I think he's got a lot of Lance Moore in him. He's got a lot of ability. And I like Terry Godwin, and I like his addition to this wide receiver group. And it wouldn't shock me if he made your football team. It really would not. And so, obviously, you got Torrey Smith. There's a number of guys in this group. And so, you're going to throw all of these different receivers at the dartboard, and you're going to see which 5 or 6 stick. I don't know how many you're going to keep this season. We'll just go with 5 for now, but that number could easily be 6. And so, we'll see what the Carolina Panthers decide to do. But in that group of receivers, I don't see a single one outside of Hogan being a possession receiver. So it'll be interesting to see how these receivers develop and what you're going to ask them to do. Obviously, your tight ends are going to be major in the development of some of these receivers because they're going to take the pressure off of some of these guys. And it'll be interesting to see if a guy like Terry Godwin can make this football team here in the 7th round, 237th overall selection, wide receiver out of Georgia. Terry Godwin, for me, is so this was a really quality draft turned in by Marty Herney. Like I said, I like Marty Herney a lot. I thought that what he did in his first stint as Panthers GM really set you up to have success. Then you had the down years with Gettleman. You had success because of what Marty Herney, the foundation he laid. And now that he's back, you're starting to see this team draft well again and acquire and procure talent. And now it's all about developing that talent. And I'm very intrigued by this draft to see how these guys develop. And I think you did some good things. Thought you could have attacked a couple of positions, cornerback, safety. I thought those were some positions. That secondary I thought needed a boost, and I thought you failed to do that here in the draft. But with the work you did up front at edge rusher and with the addition of Gerald McCoy to your front seven, I think that kind of pressure is going to take the pressure off of the secondary, and maybe some of those young guys show up and show out and give you more production than I'm giving them credit for. Let's take a look at the score for the Panthers in their 2019 NFL Draft.
Louie Tee.
So as you can see, it was a really good draft for the Carolina Panthers. I thought they did some really good things. They took care of some major needs up front along the offensive and defensive lines. And so edge rusher, offensive tackle, you took care of running back, which I thought was also something that needed to be addressed. I thought you did a quality job in even getting an undrafted guy in Elijah Holyfield that's going to make your football team and I think have an impact in his rookie campaign. And so I'm anxious to take a look at this Panthers team. I think they could really be a major player, not just in the NFC South this year, but in the NFC Conference as a whole. This is a dangerous team, and if they can right some wrongs from a season ago and stay healthy, that's probably the most important thing. Look out for the Carolina Panthers. We'll see. Developing some of these young, talented football players is going to be paramount to their success. And I'll be anxious to see if they're able to do that this season or not. I'm your man, Louie Tee, signing off. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. Make sure you check out the Louie Tee Network podcast, available on Stitcher, Google Music Play, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course the website LouieTeeNetwork.net. And so, with that being said, subscribe to the Louie Tee Network. I'm your man, Louie Tee, signing off. Until next time, have a good one.
Louie